Hey everyone, I hope you're doing amazing, and I'm pretty sure you are. This is a new episode for this week. My name is Hugo and I'm the host of this podcast. A podcast in which I interview people for you to be able to create a better architecture. That is because I believe that the construction industry has the power to create a better world. A world where humanity and nature can live, coexist, and flourish together. Today's episode is for people who are feeling a bit like I do, lonely sometimes when it comes to sustainability in architecture, when you have dreams and you want to do stuff but you don't know if you can, because when you look around it doesn't seem that a lot of people are doing it or want to do it, and you start to step back because you think you're the only one. But that's not true. That's not true at all. There is a lot of people, and there is organization who regroup those people that allow them to share the knowledge, and you can learn from them and be part of this amazing group of people. So let's find out who are those people, where are they coming from, and where to find them, and how to be part of this group of people. So as usual, grab a cup of tea or coffee, some biscuit, or a cake. Yeah, I think for this one I'm gonna go for cake because my flatmate just baked an amazing carrot cake, so I'm gonna go for the carrot cake. So cake if you're lucky enough, then sit back and listen. So today's conversation is going to be with Catherine Cosgrove. She is an architect and also the chair of SEDA, which is the Scottish Ecological Design Association. So this is where you find people interested in sustainability. So we're going to start with a wee introduction about herself, and then because she's got quite a lot of experience in sustainability, we are going to talk about the evolution of sustainability in the last 30 years in the UK. And then we're going to talk about SEDA. Who are they, what they're doing, how to have access to their resources, how to be part of the team, and why are they doing it. Let's start it. So Catherine, can you give us a wee introduction about you, what you're doing in your life and where you come from?
Yes, my name's Catherine Cosgrove. I'm an architect and I've been qualified for over 25 years. Let's just leave it at that. And through most of that time, I've had an interest in sustainability, and more recently in conservation. And this all started when I was at university. I had one tutor who had a sustainability mindset, and he told me about the Centre for Alternative Technology, which is based in Machynlleth in Wales. And that was the kind of starting point of a lot of what we would think of as sustainable architecture. But in those days, very few people had heard of it. And I did a wee bit of research, found out about them, found they had a very good bookshop, ordered up some sustainability books, and that was me, set for sustainability from that point on. And as it turned out, my tutor who pointed me in that direction was a SEDA member. Now, SEDA hadn't started at that point, but he was one of the original people involved in SEDA when it did start. And it's funny how often I look back on various sort of turning points during my career, and quite often there's been a SEDA person has said something to me or suggested something or pointed me towards something. And that, when I look back on it, has been one of the sort of key milestones in my developing interest in sustainability. So thinking back, I think I've been a member at SEDA for 15 years-ish,
Okay.
from what I can remember. And for the last year, I have been the chair at SEDA, the Scottish Ecological Design Association, in case I haven't actually mentioned that part. But I'm based in a private practice, a commercial architecture practice. My office studio is in Glasgow, but I work across the UK generally. It was quite common for me to work in projects in Wales, for instance, but also I've worked on projects in London and Middlesbrough and Liverpool. And there's a few, I mean, I'll get involved. If somebody's got a sustainability question, I'll likely get involved. And it's just a case of we tend to put together the right team for the job, regardless of which studio that they're in. So as a result, I've got quite a variety of projects I've worked on, all types of projects, all different sizes, all different subjects, all sorts of things. So quite a varied career. All good
Nice.
stuff.
Amazing. So what, just like a question like that, because you've been like working, with sustainability for quite a while now.
Mhm.
So what's the evolution of sustainability in construction industry since you started it? Like,
Well,
is
when
it
I went,
going better or
when I went,
worse?
it's all so subjective.
Yeah.
When I started at university, there was no mention of sustainability, and that was almost 30 years ago. Wasn't really included in the curriculum, and some would maybe argue that it hasn't changed very much since then. But certainly when I came out and went into practice, again, there was next to nothing was mentioned about it. But I had an interest in certain things, so I went out of my way, to find information. And at that point, almost everything you got was through trade associations. So I found an awful lot through Trada when I was looking at timber construction. And that was quite good to kind of open the door, because that was accepted as part of the construction industry. The timber at that point was starting to be taken a bit more seriously. And, the kind of first sustainability requirements that many of us had to meet was that you were using sustainable timber. So that was FSC's timber or PEFC. And I worked on a project where it was a government client that were getting a refurbishment, and they had a bad experience in one of their previous projects where I think it was Greenpeace had occupied their building and pointed out that most of the wood that was being used in the refurbishment had come from unsustainable rainforest sources. And after that, they were never going to take a risk again. So they wanted someone to check every bit of timber that was being used in that project to make sure it was from sustainable sources. And that was my job. I had to go and check all the information that we were given by suppliers to find out, how accurate it was and if it truly was sustainable. And that was 15, 20 years ago when I was doing that.
Okay.
And that was the very first time I would say that the industry as such started taking that, taking an interest to quite a specific level of sustainability that required you to maybe do something that was out of the ordinary. And generally, I would say the industry wasn't set up to give that information to allow us to make decisions. And then, over the next 5, 6, 7 years, it started to become more normal to be asking for that information. And when BRE set up the BREEAM assessment process, and in housing it was eco homes, again, they were more prescriptive about what you had to provide in terms of evidence to prove that it was been sustainable, and they gave targets. And again, some of our government clients and publicly funded bodies took on those standards as being a sort of minimum requirement, or you would have to achieve a certain score under those scoring systems, which again in turn meant we were asking questions or we were providing information that demonstrated a certain level of sustainability. And that was good enough to allow people to sort of get an understanding, a benchmark of what at that point was seen as good. So that became the norm, mainly in certain types of projects. So in my case, it was whether I was working on schools and education projects or working on housing association type new housing developments. And that was separate completely to what was happening in the private sector. There was really publicly funded projects that were asking for that type of information. And that was quite an interesting time, because it was still seen as being a special one-off. It was never seen as part of the general design or construction process. You did it because somebody had set a target. You had to do it. It was a chore. It was something that you just had to get through. And I would say it's maybe only been in the last 10 years where that has maybe evolved into being not thought of as a chore, not thought of as a problem. mean, gradually, again, more people have had experience of having to try and meet a sustainability standard. Suppliers have got more information that gives us that level of detail, and we can start making more informed choices and researching more about it. And certainly because I've been going out of my way to find information, it's interesting seeing that the construction industry is changing. Maybe not as quickly as I would like, but when I look back to what it had been when I started so many years ago, it definitely has changed. I think the problem we've got maybe going forward is it's not changing fast enough, and the challenges that we've got ahead require a huge amount of rethinking how we do even the basic things. And certainly that's when I look at it now and thinking, okay, we're really just at the start of considering embodied carbon and materials and trying to demonstrate life cycle costings and why things have got an environmental value and actually quantify a value. And this again is learning us to require new skills and have a new vocabulary and have different conversations with people. But what it's really doing is giving us a wider outlook to be able to consider our decisions. And that itself, again, is very different to how construction traditionally was, which was focused on one project, focused on specific elements of it, going in a very linear manner in order to deliver a set thing, whether it's a new building, whether it's a refurb. But generally, it was a short-term, short-lived, inward-facing process.
Okay, interesting. It's interesting to see that. Yeah, like the last scenario. Do you think do you have more clients asking for sustainable design or achieve sustainability in their design, or is more like initiative from government due to new regulation or practices, just like wanting to do more sustainable architecture?
It's a bit of everything. I would
Okay.
say there's a lot of clients are very well informed now, and that's good because it means we can have really interesting conversations about what does sustainability actually mean. Because for a long time it was just energy efficiency. I mean, they equated that sustainability just equaled energy efficiency. That was it. And trying to widen that scope a little further and talk about anything else was difficult. And then again, due to government regulation, there was a bit of a focus on reducing waste because there was a tax that came in, the landfill tax, which penalised having things been taken off site and going to the dump, which was just, when you think, looking back and you think that's ridiculous how much waste was being generated at that time. But it had a difference. It made quite a significant difference because more people were looking at it and going, well, that's an extra cost that we don't need to pay out. If you design more efficiently and construct more efficiently and order more efficiently, and when you're using things on site, you're more efficient, and you think, okay, we're learning, things are improving, and then use products that have got recycled content in them. Again, you're not using brand new materials, you're using a certain amount of what was regarded as waste, so again, that helps a little bit. But then moving the debate on a bit further into saying, well, is it the right material for the job in the first place? Is it something that has got more than one aspect we should be considering? Is it something that affects the health of people involved in the buildings? We're at an earlier stage in those conversations now, and that's not, well, in my experience, it hasn't been something that has been particularly client-led. It's been from architects who know about these things asking the questions. But in saying that, over the last years especially, there's now a focus on health and well-being that there never has been before. And I think that is actually incredibly important. And we will look back on this, in say 10, 20 years' time, we'll look back and say, well, of course, that's how it should have been. Of course, that was something you should be considering. But it's only when you've kind of gone through that learning process and understood what the effects are that you can look back and go, well, it's obvious now, but I didn't know enough then. So I was making decisions without really being aware of the consequences. So I think having that conversation with clients and then saying, look, we're all learning here, is a really good place to start, because they've got very valuable experience that they can bring to the table. Contractors have got very valuable experience they can bring to the table. And I think maybe that's the evolution that we're starting to go through just now, is there is no one person has all the answers. There is no one right way. there are going to be many different ways to be able to achieve sustainable goals. And let's just keep talking about it. Let's keep working together, and we will find a way that works for us in this particular moment. And then we will try and learn those lessons and apply them to other things.
Okay, great. That's amazing. I like the idea of like, like need everyone to get like the final answer. Everyone has a bit of the answer to sustainability. Like it. So what SEDA has to what the role is in SEDA? Why did you get the chair position at SEDA in regarding the sustainability in construction industry?
I don't know. I think you'd maybe have to ask a number of people in SEDA. It's a strange situation. I've been involved in SEDA for quite a while, and not just SEDA. I've been involved in several other ecological associations, and I always go looking for information. I think that's just part of who I am. So I'd always been in the habit of going to see sustainable buildings, going to seminars that people were having, finding out more information, and it would lead you to all sorts of places, and meet all sorts of really interesting people. And I thought for a lot of time that there would be more people who would be like me doing that, and I didn't find that many people who were. But the people that I did find quite often were based in SEDA, and also I found again within the world of sustainability, people are very open to sharing their knowledge and experience. They want to talk. They want to answer questions, and they themselves are usually of an inquiring mind and want to know what you're doing and your experiences in these things. And it's very open and interesting. And also, again, I come from kind of that private practice background, which is quite different to a lot of sustainability architects. I'm not saying that it's sustainability architects work on small housing type projects all the time, but there are quite a lot of people who have that focus, and I've had the kind of the opposite way. I've generally always worked for quite big practices. I worked on generally not domestic scale projects, and I've also got a conservation background, and I do a lot of conservation projects, which is it's a kind of really interesting mix. And I always feel like whenever I'm doing sustainability things, I'm talking about conservation. And whenever I'm doing conservation work, I'm talking about sustainability. And whenever I'm doing conservation stuff, I'm talking about non-domestic type buildings, but bringing in some of maybe the commercial background to it. And it's a kind of really interesting mix. And I would say that I don't think there are many in SEDA who've got that kind of mixed background that I have, which is it's interesting at this moment in time, because what we're looking at now is there are so many sustainability questions being asked by the public at large. There are so many policies that people are putting out with deadlines of like 2030 where we have to do these things. And you're getting to a point of going, right, we've got to assimilate a lot of information. We've got to give out a lot of information. We've got to do this in a short time space. We've got to be clear. We've got to make decisions. We've got to crack on and get things done. And I'm thinking, that's not very different from my day-to-day working life. So whenever I was asked, would you consider taking on the role of, as chair of SEDA, I thought, well, I can do that. That is something which I'm not underestimating how hard it is, but actually it's something that I can do that maybe other people wouldn't feel that they could fill that role. And not only could I do it, but I probably should do it, because it's up to everyone to do whatever they can to try and move the conversation on. So although I might not be completely comfortable in every aspect of the role, it's something I'm going to do, whether it's good, bad, or ugly. It's my turn, effectively. It's my duty to do that. I'm not saying it's going to be done particularly stylishly and well, but I'd like to think that I've made some sort of difference. Who will know?
We'll see.
We'll see.
So what do you have to do as a chair of SEDA? What's your job?
There's a few things. I mean, generally, there's a certain sort of day-to-day running of SEDA that requires you to. There are certain things that we tend to do every year. let's just say that. I mean, SEDA's calendar is, we've got certain things we should always do. And that would be, we always have the conference usually in June, although last year we had to postpone it because of COVID, so we ended up in September. But usually we have a June conference. Usually we have the Christmas time show and tell event, which gives SEDA members a chance to show people what they've been working on and tell something about it. And again, it's quite useful to find out the types of things that people are working on. Between those two events, we usually have the Howard Liddell lecture, which is in the autumn time. It can float around a wee bit, and we've usually got a certain amount of seminars and green drinks events. In a normal year, we would have green drinks, social events, and they would tend to be. We would maybe have a speaker or two speakers of a night, but the main reason for having something was so that people could just talk to each other. And they could be held anywhere, so the idea was that if you wanted to have one in Inverness, you could have one. If you wanted to have one in Glasgow, you could have one. They were just small scale, but good ways of building up just a network of people you could ask questions to. And actually that was incredibly successful in not being a formal event, but it was something that just kind of grew. And I think people who were just getting started in sustainability, we were happy that that was a format that people could come to and ask questions of anyone, which we always like talking. So mixing that in with the kind of more formal seminars where we were trying to arrange things together, all of these things are put on by SEDA members who want to get the messages out or talk about a particular thing or focus on several issues. And that itself just requires decisions to be made. And usually when they were being held in real life, we would have to organise the events. So that was the kind of day-to-day stuff. Because SEDA it's a membership-based organisation, then the bulk of the money that we get in to pay for all of this is membership fees. So there's a certain amount of having to make sure that you've got funds there to cover everything, which is the role. Say the directors are keeping an eye on the finances, making decisions, making sure that that we can keep things moving forwards. There's a magazine that comes out 4 times a year with our wonderful magazine team. Again, there's articles to be written, there's questions to be asked, there's all sorts of decisions to be made. So just keeping it moving forward requires a lot of decisions, which is what the role of the SEDA directors is. Beyond that, we've also been looking at campaigning. We've been looking at reacting to things. We've been looking about should we be shining a light on some things. The website is now becoming more of a focal point, especially when we're all in lockdown, as a place to find information. And although it's really good having it, it's maybe not the easiest to use at the moment in the way that we're now looking at using it. So again, there's decisions to be made. Are we going to change things right? How are we going to change it? What information do we want to put across? How much should be accessible to everyone? How much is accessible to SEDA members? What's the benefits, this, that and the other? So, I mean, there's all sorts of... Maybe it's not very obvious to people who are not members of SEDA, but certainly I know that the people who are helping to organise things are working really, really hard. And we all do it for free. We all do it in our free time. Because we've all got full-time jobs. So yeah, it's we're always looking for volunteers. Let's just say that.
Yeah. You said it.
But people have helped us along the way, and now it's our time to try and help others. So it is very much that on that basis that you pay it forward.
Okay, so if I understand, SEDA is a platform where you organize. Well, now it's maybe gonna be virtually, but in the past I was like in person. You organize like events where people like who are interested in sustainability showcase their work.
It's kind of like that. I mean, there's a kind of very sort of specific statement that they pulled together when they get started, which I did look out because I knew you were going to ask me about it. And at the time when they did it, it stated that what we were aiming to do was to advance education of the public in the theory and practice of ecological design and the conservation of the environment, and to carry out research into ecological design related subjects so we can publish and disseminate these results and promote greater understanding of the subjects. So, I mean, we do have all of these aspects still within SEDA. And
Okay.
that is something which there is an academic focus. There is a focus on getting knowledge out there. And it's not just sort of looking at one aspect. We really try and cover a lot of different aspects of ecological design. And actually, over the last couple of years, we've been trying to get away from being maybe a wee bit architecture-centric and trying to look at a much wider aspect of different things that are all ecological design.
For example?
Well, we've just finished the Land Conversations series, which was very interesting because that was more of a focus on land use, and there seemed to be an awful lot of lots of different debates happening around land and ecology use that people were, I wouldn't say siloed thinking, that was wrong, that people maybe didn't have the opportunity to speak across a sort of wider aspect of it. And it was interesting when our organisers who were pulling all this together were phoning up asking people, would you like to speak? There were so many people were really happy to be asked, and they thought it was a great opportunity to actually bring lots of people part of this conversation together, and to actually have that structured in a whole series of events was something which they were delighted to be part of. And it was really interesting, a really, really interesting series, because it covered so many different aspects that maybe we wouldn't have considered were something that actually was quite a critical part to the sort of overall picture. I mean, you think about, there's government policies being made on this all the time, but they maybe don't have the same big picture either. So one of the things that we're trying to do as a result of having the Land Conversation series is to kind of gather what we've learned and pull it together into a publication, which will be a kind of summary of the types of things that were discussed, and then put forward how this maybe could affect policy or kind of recommendations. So I'm not completely sure what the final format of that is going to be, but we will be having another event afterwards to launch what the outcome has been from that. Whether it's online or a live event, I think remains to be decided. But I think our aim was to try and do something in May to sort of draw the Land Conversations to sort of an end point from that. But we're happy to keep going with more conversations, and it's a good format. So I think we'll maybe look at it again and see if there's other conversations that we can have in future years.
So if we are a member of SEDA, so we have to pay a membership. It's a yearly membership, isn't it? Yeah.
Very good value for money.
Yeah. I know. So what type of support resource we can find on the website?
Well, there's a lot of things that's freely available, because that's part of what we're trying to do, is that there's information that's freely available. What's different for SEDA members is we also, within the membership side of things, have got access to more of the information that we've published previously. So, for instance, we've been uploading a lot of the older magazines into the membership section, and they are a treasure trove. I mean, I've got some of them here. I was tidying up and I was having a look at some of them the other day, including the 20th anniversary magazine from 10 years ago. And again, the articles in it are, and the older ones are really interesting. They're the types of things that you probably won't get too many other places, and it covers such a wide range of subjects. We've just started within this last year recording a lot of the events that we've been hosting, and the idea being that that's going to build up more and more. So again, the website is going to become a place where you can find all sorts of information, and possibly in a different format than it would be if you're just sort of looking at websites. And we do have a certain number of design guides which are available, I think, for free on the website. Yes, pretty sure they are. There is a new one which we're hoping to publish this year, which is about the effects of the indoor climate on people's health, which I think might be coming out before the conference. I'm not completely sure on that. I think depending on how we want to launch it. But certainly this year, I think we're putting that one out this year. And as I was saying, we're having our own discussions just now about, well, actually, we've got quite a lot of information that have been gathered over 30 years. Some of it is in printed format that we possibly should be trying to pull together and make available as on the website as a SEDA resource, whether that's in the membership section or whether that's in the public section, still to be decided. And one of the other things I know you had mentioned about is that that we now have a SEDA solar section, and they themselves have got a long history, and they themselves have got quite a lot of really interesting information, and we're going to be putting that onto the website, probably in the members section, I think. We're now talking about a SEDA structures section, and I'm hoping again that we can start sort of building more of these sort of membership sessions where we can gather information together, and it makes it a kind of a knowledge network where you can find resources on quite a wide range of subjects. So I think that's where we're going.
Okay, great. So yeah, if you just like a huge library of knowledge we got, like
yeah, but not to the extent of it being sort of small sort of sound bites. It's by people who know their stuff. It's really interesting information that I think you would find quite difficult to get in any other way. And to a certain extent, it replicates what I was saying myself. I went out and sought out information in a number of places by going to hear people speaking about it. So we're going to try and draw this together into the SEDA website so that it's a bit easier to do it without actually having to travel the length and breadth of the country to do so.
So you said you're looking for volunteers. So if there is like student or professional who wants to help, like how can we help?
Oh, please do help. We're always looking for help.
What jobs? What jobs do you have to offer?
Well, at the moment, I think where we're struggling the most is getting to grips with the newer technologies. I'd have to say maybe that's an age range thing, but I think we're not using things as well as we could do, and most of the people who are kind of running things aren't really experts in even understanding what can be done. I think maybe that's we're kind of limiting ourselves by what we know we can do, and I think actually there's plenty of other people who've got far more experience and enthusiasm to kind of follow a particular way. And when we've had to learn how to use Zoom to be able to present things, and that has been really interesting. That it's worked incredibly well and has actually addressed some of the concerns that have been raised over the years that I've been involved. And one of the concerns being that we used to have a lot of events that seemed to be in the central belt of Scotland, so it's either be Edinburgh or Glasgow. But most people who were beyond Edinburgh and Glasgow couldn't spend the time travelling to get to them. If you have an online event, then people can visit it from anywhere. So again, that's been a really useful thing. And you go, okay, change was forced upon us and we had to do it. There must be other ways of being able to use social media, to be able to use the website, to be able to use communication tools, to be able to better link things together. And actually linking to other organisations and linking to, being part of a network, being part of a wider chain, so that we can react quickly, we can share information quickly, and we can learn what's important quite quickly. To be able to answer questions quickly is another one which we've talked about for many, many years. And it's how do you be able to manage that flow of information? And we're really good at being able to create information, but being able to circulate that and help people with it is always a challenge. But actually, the way that SEDA has developed in really interesting ways is because people are interested in specific subjects and want to tell people about it. And I would say equally, if anybody really wants to tell us about what they're doing, really wants to pursue an interest in something, or has an interesting idea to say, oh, what if this linked with this? What if this person spoke to this person? If these two things seem to go quite well together, but nobody else seems to have realised that, if I raise that question, maybe other people will go, oh, I've had that idea as well. That's really good. Let's work together. So anybody who's got a kind of inquiring mind and wants to take things further, please do get in touch. And you can go through our website, and I think it's the info@seda.uk.net is the kind of general inquiries email address. Or get in touch with one of the directors, or there's lots of ways. It's not difficult to find us if you really want to. So I would encourage people. And of course, if you want to join SEDA, The rates are not that high. It's £30 a year for the full membership fee, and for students it's £15 a year. For that, you get access to all of the website, and you get discounts on any bookings that we have for seminars, which themselves we're trying to keep the prices quite low because we're all about sharing the knowledge. So we're not really making a profit out of this. We really just cover our costs.
Okay, great. And just can you give us like a wee history of SEDA, when it was created, by who?
Yeah, from back in the day, 30 years ago. Well, the founding members were Howard Liddell and Sebastian. If you've been around in sustainability architecture in Scotland over the last 20 years, you would know that Howard Liddell is the kind of founding father of most things. He was very much a character. And I think there was a similar Ecological Design Association that was based in England. It was quite specifically focused on certain things, and there was talk of, we should have them in the regions, but actually I think the regions all wanted to do their own thing. So whenever in Scotland they were considering setting up a Scottish Ecological Design Association, to a certain extent they wanted it to be have a broad focus on ecological design in a wider sense. So it wasn't just architecture. Although in saying that, the RIS were very helpful in helping us get set up, and thought it would be quite a useful thing for the members to know about, and that's how Sebastian Toombs came to be involved. But there was a kind of core group of the early founder members who were either bringing their experience to the table, or who were interested in learning more about it. And many of those founding members have gone on to be quite significant players in the world of sustainable design. I would say even now within Scottish architecture terms, that there is quite a kind of strong group of people who have come up through SEDA effectively. That's where you would find people who have a sort of similar sort of membership. But there's so many stories you could tell about Howard, and everybody has a Howard Liddell story. But he was he's a very deep thinker, a very good communicator, and he wasn't afraid to challenge us all to do better. And it wasn't always the easiest to get on with, but we had a very good way of getting through to you. So one of the things we would like to do as part of the conference, which is coming up in the next month or so, is to be able, we'll go back through the old video clips of Howard and try and capture a few of them, to be able to show sort of the rest of the more modern members that actually we have been inspired by Howard, and we would like to pass that on. And some of his thinking is so relevant today, and I still have a lot of the words in my mind whenever I'm thinking about things that go, that's right, Howard said that. We're an interesting group of people. We're not afraid to talk out about things, and I think in these times this is quite good qualities to have. So yeah, if you've got if you know a SEDA member, just ask them, just start talking to them, just ask stories and you'll get stories. We're more than happy to talk about any aspect. No question is daft. No you don't think that you're the only person that's asked. I think privately we'll all talk about things that didn't work as much as things that did work, because you learn as much from mistakes as you do from successes. But the important thing is keep trying, keep changing. Do something different today the way you did it yesterday. As I said, there's not one solution. And when I look back on all the kind of good things that SEDA have done, they have pretty much all started from that sort of same core values. We still have the same core values that we set out with at the beginning, and those have both shaped us and driven us forward, and continue to be quite valuable today. So yeah, it's a really useful and interesting community of people. We're here to help. We want to talk.
That's it for today's episode. I don't know about you, but personally I feel like more reassured and confident about about the future, knowing there is like community groups, organization who are sharing just the same dream of like just ensuring health and well-being of people and respecting nature at the same time in the construction industry. I mean, this is not huge to ask. There is a lot of work for sure, but I mean the concept is pretty easy and quite obvious for me personally. But anyway, feel great to have people like Catherine who you can tell she's definitely passionate about it and about people, helping people, and just to move forward. And I want to thank you as well for listening to this podcast. Even if it doesn't seem as a lot, it means a lot to me. And as much I enjoy this conversation with those amazing people, knowing that those conversations are valuable for you as well as much as they are for me, that makes just a huge difference. So that's why I'm kind of asking you if you can just give me a feedbacks. I already have a lot of feedback saying, oh, it's great, blah blah blah, but also I have some feedback, so maybe you can change that, maybe you can do that. So, and I really appreciate those kind of feedbacks because it makes the podcast, this podcast, so much better. I've improved and I changed a lot of things, and I worked on things to make it better. Also, let me know if you want to hear about specific subject, because I've got a bunch of ideas regarding the content that I can create, but that doesn't mean that this content is valuable for you. Plus, if you share what you want to listen to, like this different subject you want to listen to, that can bring me to new subject that I've never heard or thought about, so I can learn more, and I like learning. So go for it, don't hesitate. If you want to hear something about a specific subject, just let me know through social media, LinkedIn, Instagram, where you can find me. And even on my website you can send me an email and you can ask me like, oh, can you talk about it? I would hear someone who's like qualified to talk about this specific subject, and then I'll do the homework, finding the person and interviewing them, and that's it. And that's just gonna bring different perspective on this podcast and on architecture possibly. So yeah, go for it. And if you want to get involved with SEDA, so you can go on the website and just get your membership, and you have access to so many valuable information. This is brilliant website to go there. Or you can get involved with the team and you can be a volunteer. So I think it's for right now for students like me, currently, like regarding the whole situation, which is quite hard to find a placement for over the summer or like part-time job in architecture to get experience, knowledge, and make connection. I think that would be a good opportunity for students to get involved in something which is related to architecture. Maybe you're not gonna do designs and architecture and such, but at least you'll be involved with a project concerning architecture, and you will meet definitely like really good architect, because there is a lot of brilliant architect and architectural company involved with SEDA. So that would be an amazing opportunity to create a good connection into the construction industry for students and also for professionals. Like if you are a professional and you just want to make contact with people, just get involved. And I mean, you can create good connection. So if you want to contact SEDA, I put the link of their website, their emails, everything you need to contact them. So that's it for today, and I wish you an amazing week, and we talk together next Monday. Bye bye, love you.